All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House, and joining us once again is Sofia Zaldivar, doing what she does. Hopefully, she won't cuss nobody out today or piss anybody off, but I doubt it.
Oh, I'll try not to.
She on Twitter. Even while we were talking, she was on Twitter, cuss people out. So, I've never been a fan of it. I'm telling you, if you're on Twitter and you're a political commentator, Sofia has never been a fan of yours. Okay, she's never been a fan of yours. She's never been a fan. Hey, what can I say? 18
or I have,
years old,
but you just lost too many points with me.
Yeah. So when you're 18 years old, you just don't give a fuck. It's that culture, yo. But in all seriousness, before we get started, I want to make a couple of announcements. First, Sofia has she's on Rokfin, right? So if you are on Rokfin, make sure you follow her. It's rokfin.com as usual, / Sofia Zaldivar. And
X Zaldivar. It's the same as my Twitter username.
Is it X?
Mm-hmm.
Let me make sure. I have it in the description. Yeah, it is Sofia X Zaldivar. So it's in her link is in the description as well, next to mine for Rokfin. So make sure you go there and follow her as well. And also make sure you subscribe to her YouTube channel. It's Sofia Zaldivar. So you can catch her stuff there.
It's boring.
Huh?
It's boring.
That's boring.
It's nothing special. Yeah. One day I'll come up with a creative thing, or someone else will have to do it for me. Until then.
So let me think. I think it was it. Was that? Well, I don't know if you are subscribed to me on Rokfin, but please subscribe to us as well. And subscribe to the Combo Couch if you have not. Also, of course, as always, make sure that you go and if you're not on Patreon, go subscribe to Patreon or become a Patreon contributor so you can get our raw and uncensored live streams. The only way you can get our complete live stream, if you do not catch it live, is to get either Rokfin Premium or be a patron on any of the respective patrons or people on the MCSC network. So make sure you go do that if you have not yet. Nah, we just started. Sus Pesos. No stress.
Do they come late?
So now I want to get to the nitty gritty. So first and foremost, how you doing, Sofia? How you doing? First of all,
I'm good. I'm tired.
I know it was a late night.
The debates drained my brain.
Every time. Yeah, that's true.
I was so pissed. I was ready to throw my computer. I just thought it was such a waste of time. It was one of the worst debates I've ever watched.
It was the worst debate. It was the worst debate by far.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. No, I've rewatched like the 2016 debates with Trump and Hillary, which were also a joke. But this is just the worst.
But at least they asked questions about NAFTA and it was a joke because Hillary herself was a joke.
Like this time it was like, this candidate said this about you. What do you think? Like it's like it's not about policy. It's really just about personality.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, they asked Yang, what would you say to your first phone call with Putin? And
yeah,
can you ask something a little bit more substantive in general? And
we're going to talk about
I don't know. It's just absurd.
So let me just say my initial analysis of just the overall debate. I'll let you all know who I thought was the winners and the losers right now. So first, Trump won. Trump won the debate because if you watched the debate, if you saw the questions that were being asked, if you saw the responses that were being had, if you saw who got to talk on what topics, for most of the domestic policy issues that Bernie would probably be the best person to ask about or ask of those questions, they didn't even talk to him. He had to either chime in randomly, cut people off. And I'm glad that he was aggressive in that regard, but he didn't even get to go deep into what he normally goes into. I will say he looked energized last night and he looked like he had a lot of, he looks like he's back basically and rebounded off that heart attack. And I'm glad to see that he's healthy. But when you look at the foreign policy, how they literally skipped over Tulsi and Bernie. Actually, they skipped over both of them because even though Bernie isn't better than Tulsi on foreign policy, he is a different voice compared to the rest of them, and they skipped over both of them. And then they asked a question specifically about military service members that live in the United States, and it was super weird because they looked at like they had not only Tulsi but even Buttigieg. He would have given a bad answer, but I think they know he would have given a bad answer, and Tulsi would have immediately called him out, and so they just avoided both of them completely on a question specifically about service members. I mean, and we're gonna go into the details about a lot of this stuff, but the moral of the story is, for me, you don't want to push Buttigieg because you're worried he's going to lose if you push him. You don't want to push Biden because you worry he might forget the question, first of all, and then he might say something racist, second of all, and then he'll forget the question again, third of all, and then he'll just be trash. And that's fine, cool. You don't want to push Warren on foreign policy, okay? Nor did you want to push her on her Medicare for all. Interesting how like they asked her one question about Medicare for all, didn't ask her anything substantively about it after that. They just made it look like she just had all the answers. Kamala got a bunch of, we don't know why she got so many questions. She's not top tier anymore. Literally polling at 2. Like Yang and Tulsi are consistently polling better than her in almost all the polls. Mm-hmm. So, but she kept getting more talking time than she deserved. And all I could think this entire time is, that's cool. So you're going to ignore the strongest candidates, and then you're going to give Kamala, or give these people more talking time without ever challenging them. And you think this is how it's going to go in the general election. You think that, and you can try that if you like. So if one of the debates is hosted on ABC, you can try to throw softball questions, and it's not going to matter because Trump's going to say what the fuck he wants to say anyway. That's what's going to happen. You can push Warren and watch the Native American situation be the end of her campaign in the first week. You can push Kamala. Kamala's not even going to make it, so whatever. You can push Biden, watch this impeachment inquiry and Biden's campaign in real time without Biden ever having to be talk about it. So that's already, like, his campaign's almost done just based off of the impeachment inquiry. And Trump, I don't even think Trump has testified yet. You can push Buttigieg, and I mean, Trump ain't gonna get 50% of the black vote, but I doubt that Buttigieg can win with 0% of the black vote because that's what he's gonna get. Okay, so you can push these people all you want to win the primary. You're going to end up with 4 more years of Trump, and you're going to lose the House again. That's what's because that's what is happening now, because Ilhan and AOC and Rashida and the progressive leadership, quote unquote, in the House went so hard at this impeachment inquiry over this Ukraine bullshit that now you're even in jeopardy of losing, because they've lost credibility in my eyes. They've lost credibility. They've sacrificed their integrity to push a partisan line. Does that mean I think they're not worth shit? No, that's not what I'm saying. But they've lost credibility. And if I see this, I know that Trump is going to weaponize this in the general. Overall, the Democrats are losing. Like, they're losing with Trump not even having to say a fucking word. And that's why I say Trump won the debate last night. Beyond anybody. So, and if they don't change it, they're just gonna have to live with the consequences. And I'll spend most of my time exposing election fraud again and talking about politics on the ground. But that's all I can say about that. What do you think?
Yeah, and also just to add, I felt like the debates, I mean, it was a total clown show. And like, there were so many moments where like there was this awkward laughing between the candidates. And like, it was just like they would say something and then they would just be awkwardly laughing for like 5 seconds and waste time. Or like they would try to tell lame jokes. Like when Booker was just like, I thought Biden when he was talking to Biden.
That was kind of funny though. The timing was good.
No, to me that was not funny. It's too planned. And like when Bernie said the damn bill thing again, that's like the 3rd time he said that. And it just, all of these, it's just like overly coached and premeditated. Yeah. It's so tasteless. And Kamala was drunk out of her mind last night.
Yeah, last time she was on Ambien, and this time she was drunk.
Yeah, this time she was straight up drunk because she was trying to get her points out, but it sounded like she had no definitive end to what she was trying to say. And as she was trying to get to that point, she was like slurring her words a little bit. She was just really lost and confused. It was really embarrassing. And it was just such a joke. I couldn't, I know the only reason why I kept watching it is because I would have to cover it today. That's all I'm going to say. I would have just watched like the highlights that Tulsi puts out, that Abe puts out, and just watch the 8 minutes that has everyone looking for Tulsi Gabbard or whatever. That's it. But to me, there's nothing that anyone missed. And Klobuchar brought up the thing about her boyfriends and how she raised 17,000 from them. I don't know if you.
Huh?
Yes,
that was a joke.
She said that again.
She said
I'm pretty sure
she
said
17,000 from them.
Yep. Ready?
She
said, "I set a record. I raised 17,000 from ex-boyfriends."
Hold up. She said that about this election cycle.
She said that to Tom Steyer yesterday.
And she said that she raised 17,000 from ex-boyfriends.
She said, "Well, I appreciate his work," she said of Steyer. "I am someone that doesn't come from money. I see my husband out there. My first Senate race, I literally called everyone I knew, and I set what is still an all-time Senate record. I raised 17,000 from ex-boyfriends, and I'd like to point out it's not an expanding base."
Okay, so first of all, how many ex-boyfriends you got? They can't donate, but
they must be rich.
But either way, you can only raise like X amount per person in a Senate race. So how many ex-boyfriends did you call, Amy? And like my question is, when was you married and when were these your ex-boyfriends? Because I feel like there might be some overlap here. I feel like there might be a little bit of overlap. But overall, I agree. I 100% agree. If you could have just watched the highlights of Tulsi, watched the 3 or 4 highlights from Bernie, and that would have been the only substance you would have seen.
It would have sufficed because it was the rest of it. It was just a joke. Like it was just like awkward moments, lame jokes, no substance. And when they talk about substance, it's the same shit I've heard 7,000 times, which is abortion. We get it. All of you are pro-choice. We fucking get it. And
also the abortion question and the way it was framed was super weird because. And I think it was Warren who said something like, "Oh no, it was a person who asked the question, but also Warren and Kamala. They were essentially asserting that Roe v. Wade was about to be taken down, except for it completely ignores the fact that multiple federal judges have knocked down every single crazy abortion law that has been introduced since Trump became president. Like multiple, and these are like Trump's judges, which is super weird. So they're making this an issue, a bigger issue than it is at the moment. It was back then because we honestly did not know what was going to take place for the abortion situation. But now we know. Was it Georgia or Alabama? Alabama's abortion law got struck down. Virginia, the governor just signed a law, Democrat by the way. And guess what? It's not going to matter because it's going to get struck down for the same reason that Alabama's law got struck down. So why are we talking about something that has already been substantively addressed? But more importantly, let's be honest, right? The president doesn't have all that much control over that particular aspect of our lives yet. Thank God. Or else we could have had problems, right? Because then Bush would have been in charge and then Trump would have been in charge of this type of stuff. And we don't want that. But we didn't get to talk enough about what the president actually has control over in a lot of these situations.
Yeah, and I mean the other issues, it's just like the same shit with Medicare for all. They vaguely, they talk about it. They don't talk about many of the details. Bernie says the same stuff that he usually says. There's never any distinction made between a public option and Medicare for all. It's nothing specific that actually convinces people to support Medicare for all rather than the public option. And that's something that I'd really like to see Tulsi actually bring that up and actually say, this is the difference between a public option and Medicare for all. It's the wrong premise because public option, you're still going to have to pay all these out-of-pocket expenses. It's just going to be slightly cheaper. that's still going to perpetuate the same system that we have today, where it's going to be just a couple thousand less people die every year due to lack of health care. But it's just like the same that same debate, like the same Overton window of that debate is just, okay, do you support Medicare for all or do you not? It's never really any detailed
Well, I would say this
response.
too. I would have liked to see Tulsi say a lot of stuff if she was able to talk. I would have loved to see her say some things that she was literally not allowed to say because they
Yeah.
refused to let her.
And
Go ahead.
when they talked about Saudi Arabia, of course they just focus on Khashoggi. That's all they focus on. And Tulsi
And
actually
that's
had
on
a
purpose, by the
tweet
way.
from, yeah, of course, because it's just like you can't actually hold Saudi Arabia accountable for all of their actions. It just has to be one tiny action.
To make
And
it look like, because they know that the Saudi Arabia is now viewed in an extremely negative light by everybody in the country.
yeah,
So if you
right.
do that, if you focus on Khashoggi, you don't have to talk about the fact that there's a bipartisan consensus. Like whenever Trump was like, "Yo, we're going to send troops to Saudi Arabia to protect oil," where was the outcry from the Democrats?
We're
Like,
the resistors.
and yeah, exactly. Or even, I'm not gonna lie, is so Bernie did okay on foreign policy last night, and once again, I do have to thank him. His answer was not perfect for the Israel-Palestine situation, but because of how often we never hear about it, I think it was appropriate and it warrants, a thanks, because anytime the Palestinians' plight gets brought up on national television for all to hear, then that is a victory for the Palestinians and for the people fighting in that movement. But with that being said, when we're talking about sending troops to Saudi Arabia to protect oil, Bernie didn't say anything about that. And there was no outrage about this. Because if you know what we're sending troops to go do, then you gotta be outraged about it. So as I can
Yeah, and
appreciate, go ahead.
no, sorry, I was just gonna say, and Bernie and all of the other candidates except Tulsi, their criticism of Saudi Arabia is that they're a brutal dictatorship. That's not enough because
And we
there are
don't
a
care about
couple
that.
of brutal yeah,
Our
it's just
country, I
like
mean.
that they're authoritarian and whatnot, and it's just like that those aren't effective lines of attack because you can apply that to several other countries if you wanted to. There's always going to be countries that have that kind of leadership, but the real reason why we should be opposing Saudi Arabia is because our alliance with them is, first of all, it's unconditional, and second of all, it actually threatens our own national security interests. And in terms of their exportation of Wahhabism and Salafism. But I just wanted to add that Tulsi had tweeted out in 2018, it's good some media and politicians are criticizing Saudi Arabia for likely murder of a journalist in their embassy, but will they condemn Saudi Arabia and Trump administration for the genocide being waged in Yemen, where Saudi U.S. is complicit in the murder of thousands of civilians and children?
Yes.
So that to me that was a good tweet because that Overton window of criticism of Saudi Arabia is just limited to Khashoggi, but it's not actually a broad criticism that's substantive because again, it would threaten the
Yeah.
Saudi
And
Arabia's power.
and I
And
think that it's like, so anybody watching this channel knows that, like, I'm about root causes. If you can you can tell me, like, you don't like Saudi Arabia, but you don't like Saudi Arabia because of the feeling they give you, because their values, like morally, do not mirror ours, and therefore you have a personal problem with them. Not necessarily a political one, although some people have convinced themselves that it's a political one. But if I ask you, well, okay, they're a dictatorship. Here's the problem with that. We work with dictators all the time, so that's not a good enough excuse. So what substantively policy ideas do you have with Saudi Arabia? What actions have they conducted that you have a problem with? Nobody can ever tell me outside, oh, well, they do this, and that. Okay, human rights atrocities, that's cool. So why haven't we overthrown them? What's the problem? What are we waiting for? Because I'd say, well, Saudi Arabian royalty donated hundreds of thousands, probably millions at this point, to Netanyahu's campaign. They work very closely with each other. Saudi Arabia obviously had a huge part in 9/11. Saudi Arabia funds terrorism across the world. Saudi Arabia manages to stay off of our terrorism watch list while we simultaneously put on Iran on our terrorism watch list, put on Syria on our terrorism watch list, but we won't put on our allies, even though we know for a fact they're funding. Pakistan isn't even on the fucking terrorism watch list, despite the fact that Imran Khan touted the fact that they had 40,000 terrorists in Kashmir just fucking shit up. That's all they were there for, illegally occupying the area, and they're still not on the terrorism watch list. So once again, it has to go to the root. If you can explain to me why Saudi Arabia is bad, you can say good things are good and bad things are bad, and that's cool for a senator, that's cool for a commentator, a pundit, whatever, that's cool. But if you're running for president, I need you to understand what Saudi Arabia is doing, how they operate, and explain to me how you will dismantle the mechanisms that they've been using to prop themselves up and keep themselves without account for the last, 100 years or so. That's what I need to see on foreign policy. And so I want to say this as well. Tulsi last night, and Abe told Sofia this on Twitter. Her press assistant told us this as well. Tulsi has been sick for the last 4 or 5 days, for those of you who don't know. And she hasn't been a little sick. She's been actually really, really sick. And for those of you who follow her on Twitter, and even on YouTube, actually, you've noticed she hasn't had any live streams. She hasn't been tweeting a lot. In fact, she's actually posted a lot of old videos. And just kind of keeping her activity up as far as her social media activity and the algorithms to make sure her name is still popping up for the debates. But she had not been talking. She has been resting. And that is highly likely why, one, she didn't actually do a video about Bolivia, because she hadn't done a video about literally anything. Her own marijuana legislation passed yesterday in the committee, and she hadn't gotten to really talk about it. She hadn't did a video about it. A bunch of stuff happened, because it wasn't just a Bolivia situation. There's a lot of stuff happened that weekend, and then throughout the rest of the week.
Yeah, we pardoned some war criminals. She
pardoned
actually
war
talked
criminals,
about
the bombing in Gaza.
Recognition of that, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that happened that normally
Tulsi
speaks on that she wasn't able to speak on, and it's likely because she was sick, and she was probably planning on speaking on a lot of that tonight. Like, I can say with the, just from contacting the campaign, that they took a lot of issue with Pete Buttigieg, not only what he said in the last debate, but some of the things that he has been saying since the last debate. Tulsi was going to ask him a lot of questions about his time as mayor and his quote unquote qualifications to be commander in chief. And she had her hand raised the entire, because normally, like I said, if she has a problem with you, she tweets about it, she'll do a video about it. She was never able to do that. So she was going to do a lot of that on the debate stage, couldn't do it. And you couldn't see, for some reason, some people could, and I think it depends on what stream you were watching. Some people could see it, others could not.
Yeah, I watched the MSNBC stream, and I could not. Every time that the camera would be focused on the candidates, and then it would include Tulsi, her hand would not be up, so it looked like she wasn't even trying to interject.
Yeah, except for I was watching both. So on MSNBC, I had on my screen, and on my phone, I had Washington Post stream, and you can see Tulsi raising her hand. But even then, they were trying to they keep the camera off of Tulsi often. They've done that every single debate because clearly, which I'm going to talk about in a second, no matter what happens, she's the number one Google candidate. And even if she's not in debate, she's the fourth Googled candidate, fourth most Googled candidate for a debate she wasn't even part of. So just to let everybody know, I want to inform everybody that she has been sick. She's been very sick. She traveled literally in a week, New Hampshire in 20-degree weather, to California, back to New Hampshire, to Hawaii, back to Atlanta, like all of this in the span of a week. So she's not feeling well.
Yeah, I remember over the weekend she had also canceled a couple of events too.
Oh, yeah, she canceled almost all of
her events, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there was not a single live stream. So, and she didn't even get to do events in Georgia. And believe it or not, Atlanta loves her for whatever reason. Last time they went to Atlanta, they had that surprise visit from her, and she filled the entire room. So, but she couldn't do the events because she was that sick. The only time she had when she finally did have energy, the only thing she had time to prepare to do was to get ready for the debates. So just wanted to inform everybody on that. And like I said, her press assistant had mentioned it to me when I asked him about it, but also her husband actually told Sofia this on Twitter last night. So just wanted to clarify that. Now, Sophia, why is it that no matter what they do, Tulsi seems to be the most scored candidate every single debate? Well, because she didn't get a chance to talk. She didn't perform as well by our standards, but a lot of it was because she was being shut out. So she got. I know as a debater, when you're shut out, it's very hard for you to get your mind back on track because you have these talking points that you were so focused on getting out, and you get cut off, and you have to switch gears without that feeling of completion. But yet. She got Kamala. She put Kamala back in her place so she can sit the fuck down back in her seat. She got Buttigieg at the very, very end. But in the entire middle, she was not talked about at all. And even in the middle, if you were paying attention on Twitter, she was still like number one trending in the USA. I don't get that either. So why do you think she's constantly trending despite not being able to speak?
I think it's because unlike all the other candidates, she typically says something new at the debates. I think Yang sometimes does this too, but also her attacks on the other candidates are unique and they're effective, I would say. So I think it makes it brings awareness to whoever she's attacking in a way that the other candidates have not succeeded in doing. Like when she attacked Kamala, when she attacked Pete last time too, and then now this time Pete, and then this time again Kamala, or when she even attacked Warren, even though most people don't think that was an effective attack, I think that it was still a good one because it showed how the media was protecting Warren. But
very true.
I do think that whenever she goes after the other candidates, it's not for some petty thing. Like I remember when Gillibrand went after Biden for something that he had said about abortion, maybe.
Actually, she went after Biden over something he legitimately did with abortion. Like he tried to pass legislation.
Well, someone went after him for something that he said rather than did.
Oh, that he didn't regret the abortion bill or some shit like that he had pushed?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But my point, I guess, is that she tries to use something recent that exemplifies why they aren't qualified. And she typically she ties it back to you were in a leadership position, or you're trying to be in a leadership position and you're already failing at doing that with these comments you've made, these positions that you have rather, and your record in the case of Kamala. I don't know. That's why I think that when the other candidates attack each other, it's petty. Mm-hmm. It's not of any concern really to them to attack them. They're just doing it for their own political gain rather than actually focusing on the substance and why people shouldn't gravitate towards these candidates because they are weak. And they aren't saying the same things that we've heard so many times. I don't know. Yeah. That would be my.
And so I will want to add this. For Tulsi, I think she has this very unique ability to tie. Her messaging has gotten stronger, right? Because even for the critiques that I have of her, it wasn't that. So I'm gonna put it like this: if you want to compare her to everybody on the stage, I think she outperformed most of them. I think the only one that's comparable to her was Bernie because he came out very strong and very energetic, and he had the energy to chime in and make sure he got his message across. By our standards, she didn't do the best because we've seen her literally in campaigns. So, and do crazy things on the debate stage with literally 5 minutes of talking time. So from that perspective, I get it. But if we're going to compare to everybody else on the stage, she probably did the best. Like I said, the only dispute would be with Bernie. However, I get what you're saying that we can't compare her to everybody else on the stage because she's already held to a ridiculous standard compared to everyone else. Like it's already way too high. So of course it's unfair, but it's the burden of being a leader in a situation and under these circumstances where you're highly scrutinized. It's that burden, and you kind of have to rise to the occasion. She was sick, so like that probably explains most of it. And then of course the systemic issue of her being blacked out. Now, As far as her being the most Google candidate, I think it's actually significant. I think it tells two stories. One, Tulsi and Buttigieg, I would say, were probably equally unknown going into this election. I would say that Tulsi was probably more unknown than Buttigieg, or excuse me, more known than Buttigieg was, just by way of being part of Bernie's movement in 2016. Now, why is it that we have seen Buttigieg never be the most Google candidate, not even cracking the top 3 or 4, and yet we have seen Tulsi be the most Google candidate in every debate she's been part of, but also she was the top 4 Googled candidate in the debate she wasn't a part of, and that wasn't Pete Buttigieg. It tells me this, right? And it's something that we talked about regularly. Is Buttigieg actually doing as well as the polls are saying, as the mainstream is saying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Or are we seeing the exact same pattern that we saw from Warren, Biden, Kamala at one point, even Beto at one point, where his polling recently is a direct reflection of how much coverage he's been getting. Not that they're going to vote for him, not that they're sold on voting for him, but how much coverage he has been getting. Therefore, they say the first name or the last name that they heard on CNN and MSNBC. And if that's the case, which it most likely is, because it isn't like his individual unique donations have gone up. There's no significant report on that. Then he's setting himself up for failure, right? He's setting himself up for disappointment, and so is the establishment. Because who watches these shows? 60 and up. They're the ones who are likely answering them landlines and are voting in these polls. And let's be honest, they're predominantly white as well. So if that's the case, and people don't seem to be interested in your campaign in any capacity other than what the mainstream codifies your campaign is, and that's not going to win you a Democratic primary election. We've already seen how that plays out. For Tulsi, on the other hand, every time people say, well, and it's interesting because this is the argument that has been being made since the first debate she was part of. Just because you're the most Google candidate, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting more support. Okay, so that might have been a good enough excuse or good rationality on the first time or for the first time. But this is the 4th debate she's been part of, and her support has gone up every single time. Her donations have gone up every single time. And she just got done with the November debate that everybody was saying she was never going to be a part of after she missed the first debate, right? And they were trying to move on from her. After the 4th time it happens, I think that we can say whenever Tulsi is the most, I can't speak for everybody else, but whenever Tulsi is the most Google candidate, it absolutely equates to more support because they see, even if you're Googling her to figure out what the hell is being talked about, you're like, why the hell are they attacking this person who supposedly they say is only at 2%, is only at 1%, is only at 3%? Why are they going out of the way to demonize this one person? And America loves cheering for an underdog. It is how we've been conditioned by Hollywood. We love seeing the underdog succeed. And so people keep digging. My friends were all messaging me this morning like, have you seen the smears against Tulsi? These people aren't even in politics. They're like, hey, are you seeing this, man? Do people buy this shit? Because nobody I'm with is buying this. Nobody believes this stuff. And in fact, it makes them dig even deeper. Like, why are they smearing her? And they figure out the truth about her. They go to her YouTube channel. They see her interview like, whoa, she's a real deal. And then she ends up winning their support. So it demonstrates two things to me overall, that for Tulsi, being the most search candidate, once again, it's super weird because she didn't even get that much talking time, and yet she was still the most search candidate. That does equal support for her. That does equal more support for Tulsi. I can't say that for everybody else. But for 2, because of how equally unknown Buttigieg is, it makes me believe that he is heading for a very disappointing early primary, where he thinks he fell for the same trap that Warren fell for, which is that, oh, I'm polling well, therefore I'm actually becoming, I'm getting more voters. They're confusing a growing popularity with getting more voters. You can become more popular as your brand gets more awareness, but that's how that's what happens when you're talked about all the time. It's just like pop culture, pop music. This person might be in the news cycle this week, but the next week, this person's the most popular pop culture artist in the news cycle. That does not necessarily mean that you are going to be the one that people vote for when the time comes. I like you is not the same thing as I'm voting for you. Really quick, I wanted to talk about, oh man, it was something that was really important. Oh, duh. The exchange between Buttigieg and Tulsi. What's your take on it?
Well, in similar ways, it's just like how Kamala reacted when she was asked about what Tulsi had said about her last time, or 3 debates ago, because she and even this time, because she made them just look like a child, like the way that they reacted to it. It was just this, okay, you're making a valid point about me. You're totally lying about me. I'm not going to refute any of those points, even though you're saying exactly what I said. And now I'm really mad at you about it. So I'm going to attack you personally. And I'm going to go after you for meeting with someone, meeting with a leader of another country, a leader who is considered a state enemy, whatever you want to call it. And somehow he was trying to suggest that because she has bad judgment in meeting for him, her experience isn't enough either. Because her point was, listen, it's not just about your military service. That doesn't equate to you being qualified. And an example of this is something recent that you just said, that she feels like is very telling of what kind of leadership that he would bring, which isn't the kind that she finds is necessary. But overall, he was very smug, as usual, because he wasn't. Yeah. Again, these people are in it for themselves. So when she goes after them substantively, they feel like she's threatening them, that she's disrespecting them in a way that isn't warranted. Even though these are debates, this is the purpose, is for you to go after the other candidates and not necessarily tear them down, but criticize them effectively, and show why you are better as a result. That's the whole point of the debates. And people like Kamala and Pete act like it's offensive for someone to go after you substantively. Like it has to be something superficial and petty. But yeah, that was my take. I just felt like he was very childish and petulant.
So, yeah, I agree. And let me just say this. So what was funny about that exchange was really, like, the funniest part was how it started. Because, once again, for those of you who don't know, Tulsi had actually been raising her hand to challenge Buttigieg all night. Because they were protecting him. And it was very clear. You know how you know they were protecting him? So, in the exchange between Kamala and Buttigieg, they were actually talking about how Buttigieg called out Kamala on what's, I don't pay attention to Kamala, so I don't know exactly what it was, but apparently it's pretty egregious to the point where they were like, yo, you should address this. And Kamala wouldn't even go after Buttigieg. She even though she went, like, he's literally the top tier, he's a top tier candidate at this point, and yet you go after Tulsi, but not Buttigieg, but he's the one who's threatening. Why is that? Because Kamala was told, don't even think about it. Don't touch him or you're done for real. And so they were protecting him the entire night. So it was funny to me when they were like, Tulsi, talk to us really quick about election integrity and corruption. Yeah, I mean, I introduced the Securing America's Elections Act, but fuck all that. Buttigieg, bring your ass over here. Let me talk to you real quick. You full of shit. Let me tell you. I was dying just off of the way she just pivoted. And I love that about her because she's made it so that you know at least
that's what she's done every time.
Because she
does that every time.
First time, it was because Tim Ryan legitimately triggered her. Like, it pissed her off what Tim Ryan did. Second time, Kamala did the same thing. But now you notice, like, she's seeing, like, okay, you know what? If they won't give it to me, I'm just going to take it then. Because if she raises her hand, they go out of their way to change the question. So she answered their question, and she could have answered it substantively because her election integrity bill is legitimately the best one. But she said, you know what? Damn all that. Hey, Pete, you full of shit, and here's why, and here X, A, B, C, and D, and when you do that, you can because it's the second time she's done it to him, and he gets thrown off when he gets attacked. She exposes a part of Pete that we have really not seen the entire election. This is the second time she's done it, which is Pete comes off very composed. Pete comes off very presidential. He comes off very trained, very coached, and very groomed. He is, I mean, it's part of his officer training. That's what they train you like that in the military. But also you can tell, like I said, he's been coached very well, honestly, if we're being real, because even still, I would say that out of all the people that Tulsi's had trouble with, Buttigieg is the most difficult to deal with, because not only is he being protected, but in addition to that, he's once again very well spoken, very quick on his feet, and he's a millennial like Tulsi. So shit talking is basically our first language. It's kind of how we I don't know what it is, but that's what millennials do. We shit talk. So when she addressed him and called him out for the statement that he made on Mexico, and I wanna tell you all, by the way, because Tulsi said the fact check, and of course we did, and she was right. The question was, but Mayor. It was a lot of questions, but specifically this part. But Mayor, specifically, do you see a time when troops go into Mexico? If Mexico welcomed it, for instance, Buttigieg, there is a scenario where we could have security cooperation, as we do with countries around the world. You know what that means. Now, I would only order American troops into conflict if there were no other choice. That's a lie, as demonstrated with his Syria comments. If American lives were on the line, if this were necessary for us to uphold our treaty obligations, but we could absolutely be in some partnership role if and only if it is welcomed by our partner south of the border. In other words, he just said, in the context of what Tulsi said about fighting cartels, because that's what the question was about, he would send troops to the border if Mexico asked him to. Now, this leader in Mexico would never ask that. However, we have had a habit of installing leaders in Mexico, and those leaders have done little to nothing to quell the situation with the drug cartels, because, well, we prop up the drug cartels in Mexico as well. And the leaders, like I said, have generally worked with or for us. So all Buttigieg would have to do as president, which is what Tulsi's point is say, a president XYZ that we installed, we're having an issue right now where comprehensive immigration reforms are being introduced, and there's about to be a legitimate path to citizenship that doesn't look good for us, because we can't use that issue to divide people, and that doesn't look good for you. So we need to come up with some grand scheme to make it so that immigration would be comprehensive immigration reform and the path to citizenship would be problematic right now. We're about to pay off some drug cartels. We're going to make this so big that we're going to send troops there. Say it's that bad that we have to send troops there. And Pete Buttigieg, because he's a damn CIA asset, would absolutely send those troops there. If all it requires cooperation from another country that's easy. That's so easy to get when you control the leadership of the other countries. So what Tulsi said was absolutely true. And of what was the worst part about that, or I guess the best part too, Tulsi called him out. She was right. He said, try to make that line up. Oh, I know this is par for the course and Washington make stuff up. Yeah. No, it wasn't made up. It was. And
he always does that where he pretends to be some kind of outsider. And
like he acts like he's innocent. Yeah, he tries to act like a fuck. Like I said, it's a child. He's a child. And he says, oh, well, I'm judging your leadership because you met with Assad. Okay, so real quick, in case you haven't noticed, that's usually when you know you've lost the debate to Tulsi and you're trying to protect yourself, because that really did expose a chink in Buttigieg's armor when Tulsi said that. Especially for me as a veteran and my other friends who are also veterans, they're like, he said, what? He said, what do you got cops for? Like, what the hell? You're going to send army troops to go fight drug lords? That is like some Mad Max shit, like some dystopian, like that's wild to me. And so that would be like literally like deploying the National Guard onto the Crips and the Blood in California in the 90s. Like that's what that is essentially akin to. So it's serious shit. And so when he responds with that, you know it was over. And then what Tulsi did, in so many words, was call him a punk ass bitch. Because she was like, oh, so what you're saying is you're scared to meet with Assad. You're scared to meet with leaders you disagree with. And and then in the middle of that statement, first of all, Pete Buttigieg's face was just hilarious. But he said, oh, you also met with Trump. You'll meet with Trump too. Like, huh? Yeah. Well, she's a congresswoman. If the president asks her to meet with him, then she should meet with him because she's a congresswoman. I don't know exactly what do you want her to do? I'm not meeting with Trump. Why? Because I don't like him.
I don't want to make him. I don't want to make him. I don't care about the policies that he could potentially, get passed or change that was the or whatnot. Shit. Yeah.
But what it did, though, in my opinion, is that it exposed Pete Buttigieg as a petulant child. When you tell a congressman she shouldn't meet with the president, when you tell a committee member of the Foreign Affairs Committee that she shouldn't meet with world leaders if it can mean peace because they're an adversary, that's the only reason why is because he's an adversary. If you say that demonstrates to me that you are absolutely not capable of running this country. You're not only are you not capable of running this country, but you shouldn't be in any leadership position because your judgment is solely based off of who you do and don't like and who the United States does and does not like. Beyond all the other shit that's wrong with Pete Buttigieg, in my opinion. So if you're an older voter and you see Pete Buttigieg acting like that, that is one thing. Pete Buttigieg and Tulsi, I think, are almost the same age. Exactly. I think he might be 37 or he's 39.
Yeah, I think he's just a year younger than her.
Yeah.
Because he's the youngest candidate.
If I have two veterans, by the way, Tulsi is the ranking member. She's a 04. I believe Buttigieg got out as an 02 or 03 maybe, but probably an 02. And it was on display last night. If I'm an older voter, 50, even 45, a little bit older, and I'm looking at this exchange between these two, they're both young. They're both up and coming. Both running for president, both the only veterans, both claiming that their expertise is foreign policy, even though Buttigieg has never really displayed expertise on foreign policy. But if I'm looking at just the demeanor, and a lot of people look at that and that alone because that's just how people are. I saw one adult and one child. And it's just that cut and dry. I'm only 30, and that's what his gray beard come from. I got an old soda. And there was this thing that went off like in my brain, like my old man brain, that was like, oh, that was really childish, bro. How old are you? Like, I hope you don't have kids, because he was acting like he responded like a child would. I know you are, but what am I? That's what he did. Mm-hmm. And more telling is that he was acting like a neoliberal version of Donald Trump in that exchange. You met with Assad. Oh, I can't believe you met with Trump. That's what you did in the middle of her talking and addressing real points. That's who he was acting like. And if Trump would have behaved like that during the debates, the neoliberal media would have been all over him. But because it wasn't Trump, it was one of their own. It was Tulsi Buttigieg got the best of Tulsi. No, she didn't. No, he didn't. And it's so funny because at the end of the debate, they said, the post debate, they were like, everybody did good except for Tulsi. She's the only one who did badly. She did so horrible. And then on MSNBC's Twitter, they posted an article saying that the caption was that Pete Buttigieg slams Tulsi. And they used Tulsi's statement to say that Pete Buttigieg slammed Tulsi. Okay? After we called her out, I got in contact with the campaign. Press secretary got this shit squared away. They finally, after an hour, retracted it, even though they got ratioed within the first 5 minutes. They changed the caption. They took off the part where they say Pete Buttigieg got slammed. They just say, oh, Tulsi says this. Sorry. It wasn't Tulsi slams Buttigieg.
What she had said What she had said was, "What you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation." So to me, that's telling because it shows that even to some degree, NBC feels that that is a good stance and that's that's nothing that you should that's something that you can criticize. It's a good and appropriate stance, and it's a presidential position as well. But because they're disappointed that Buttigieg, said the opposite of that, and it was actually their enemy Tulsi that said that, they had to put that on Buttigieg and suggest that he said that.
Yes, because it was true.
Which goes to show that even they understand that Tulsi's positions are rational, but they don't want to boost her.
Yes,
So
exactly. They thought that, like, somebody saw that statement, and it might not have even been a writer at the debate, but it probably was. But they usually just hear it afterwards and they read it or something like that on Twitter, and they're like, wow, go Pete, you got her, good job. And then they're like, oh shit, it was Tulsi. I mean, I don't like it. I don't like that. Just kidding. And like I said, it's funny because they said, MSNBC said, oh, that she was the worst one. She didn't do anything good. She got beat up. And then you use her statement, glorifying it, but attribute it to Pete. Because that's how bad she did. She, once again, most Google candidate, right? Because that's how bad she did. Number one trending candidate all over the U.S., even though the Twitter was trying to suppress it. Again, of course, it didn't matter. She still, and even right now, she's trending. It said, let Tulsi speak. It's trending on Twitter. So, like, the day after. Okay? So, for everybody else, like I said, for the general audience, they were, once again, we have a way higher standard for Tulsi than the general audience does, and that's good because we have to hold her to that standard. But the general audience was contacting me like, man, Tulsi did a great job last night. She did so good. Man, they were blocking her out. It didn't matter. She still did a good job. I'm like, what's crazy about that is, you know why? Because they don't even know how much we know about what she could have said. That's why we say she didn't do as well as she could have, because we know she could talk about the off act. We know she could have talked about her marijuana bill. Well, no, she couldn't have, because they literally just were like, no, you can't. You're not allowed to talk about this, which was super weird. Her bill was literally headlines, and they didn't even ask her about marijuana.
I think that she could have when she was talking about racial disparities and tying that into the war on drugs and stuff. She definitely could have talked about that. And I think that was.
The thing is, when you have to remember everything, like when you wanted to say something, it doesn't go away, right? So like you're trying to answer the question, but remember everything you wanted to say before. So as a debater, like I know that if I was in a debate for an hour long and I got cut off for 30, 45 minutes and I wanted to say all these different things, it's very hard for you to remember what you wanted to say and also address the question substantively. Because even with the Secure America's Elections Act, which is a fantastic bill, I mean, it's open source software, blockchain technology, voter verified paper ballots that get run through the blockchain technology, so that the reason why it's great is because if you try and go back and change something in those machines, it doesn't change the results, but it records that you tried to fuck with the machines. And you can't change that. So that's what's so big about that. And of course she could have elaborated, but she didn't even have time to, because she's been wanting to go at Pete all night long. And she couldn't, and raising her hand. They were ignoring her. So she said, I'm not going to raise my hand this time. I'm going to wait for them to call on me, and then I'm going to do what I have to do. But she only had so much time to do it. And I'm sure, especially being sick like she was, it was hard to recall everything she wanted to say. She was even reading off of the paper more than she normally does, because you can tell her mind was foggy. But even still, once again, didn't matter, because she was the most Google candidate. She's going to get a lot of donations again, as usual. She's one poll away from qualifying for December. A couple of thousand. I think she might be a couple of thousand from 200,000, or she might have already hit it. I don't know. Probably already hit it.
Yeah, she was 4,000 away last night.
Okay, so she was 4,000 away from December debates. She'll get it. Like, she'll get it before then, because I think when she gets done being sick, y'all in some trouble. Because I don't think she was pissed about what happened last night. I know that for a fact. And whenever Tulsi is pissed after a debate, even if she won the debate, people are in for it. So, and she's going to come back with a vengeance in December. But remember, we didn't even think she was going to be here in November. And the part of the reason why she's here, obviously, is the Hillary Clinton thing. part of it, not all of it, but part of it. And definitely they were punishing Tulsi for what she did to Hillary, how she exposed her, how she exposed her surrogates, how she exposed the hypocrisy within the Democratic Party, how she's suing Hillary Clinton. Like these people, remember, they've had their entire career dedicated the last 4 years to defending her no matter what, and they were punishing her for what she did to Hillary, and the fact that Tulsi is fastly growing. Now, I want to close off with this with Andrew Yang. He was asked about that weird question about the phone call with Putin. That was weird, right? But the truth of the matter is, Yang made that shit way, way weirder, because he went on to serve a big old slice of propaganda pie the entire question. Oh, sorry, I beat your guy. What? Do you know that Trump has been harder on Russia in regards to sanctions than Obama was? He's pulled out of nuclear treaties.
He went further on Ukraine. Obama didn't even want to arm the rebels.
Yes. Okay. So there was that. That's first thing. But then he goes on to talk about creating a WTO for data. Excuse me? No. No. Hell no. Are you kidding me? That World Trade Organization, for those of you who don't know, it's once again one of our babies, where we control what people can and can't import and export, what they can and can't sell. Like, for example, we don't allow, we exported our textile mills out to, well, not exported them, but we can't create as much textile because that's Brazil's thing now. Because we made it fair for them. But also it's cheaper for us to get our textile out of Brazil than to manufacture it here. That's what it was really for. Now, that's just one example of how the World Trade Organization basically screws countries that otherwise would have a very successful economy, but we say it's to regulate it so that it's fair for other people. Like nobody else can sell as much sugarcane as Brazil and the US. However, there are a lot of countries that could sell sugarcane if they wanted to, but they're not allowed to. That's just one example, another example. So when you're saying you want to give the WTO want to create a WTO with our data? You want to trust the government with our data when they're about to contract with Equifax, and right after Equifax had the largest data leak in history? And we notice they haven't been punished, and the story disappeared. And the congressman who was actually a Republican the senator, who was a Republican from Utah, he was hounding them about it. And guess what they did to his ass? They replaced him with Mitt Romney. So after he got replaced with Mitt Romney, the story died because they got the message across. That's who Yang wants to put the power of our data in. Are you kidding me? Then he goes on to talk about China and how we have to challenge China more. And we have to be harder on China. How? What do you want to do?
And I think he brought up the Hong Kong stuff, and also the Uyghur Muslim thing.
Yeah, and what was even weirder is that he didn't even bring up. He brought up UBI thing maybe once, but it wasn't effective. Yeah. It wasn't really effective in the way he did it. And I think what was interesting about that was this Yang's entire performance. Now I will admit, like I know at least that if he's gonna, I'm gonna laugh if he says something because he's a funny guy. He's a likable person. I think he's naive as hell. People think that he's nefarious. I don't think he's nefarious. I think he's naive. I think that people confuse being a good businessman with being a good politician, being well spoken with being a good politician, repeating talking points with being a good politician, or being intelligent when it comes to political issues. That's not the case. Most politicians are stupid. You don't get to being at that level generally without being an idiot. It's very rare to I'm not even joking. Like, think about all the candidates that are on stage. The only ones who are smart, I would say, are Tulsi and Bernie. When it comes to politics, I mean, Tulsi and Bernie. And even Bernie isn't as smart when it comes to most politics outside of his domestic issues as people think he is. And it's because most politicians are not. You can't be that smart. You're not. Cynthia McKinney was that smart. Dr. Jill Stein is that smart. And they don't let you get to the Ajama Baraka, same thing. He is that smart. Even Conyers. I think that Conyers was pushed out because of his Medicare for all legislation. And his reparations bill. I think that was why he was pushed out. After I started doing more research on the situation, he was forced to resign, even though they didn't force Franken to resign. He just resigned on his own accord. So Conyers was that smart. And so you start to see this pattern where if you are legitimately intelligent, politically, and savvy, you will be forced out in one form or fashion. Tulsi got lucky. Her transformation came later than most, and that's why she got in the position she's in. But generally, you can't be that smart. So with Yang, he isn't as smart when it comes to a lot of issues. He's really smart when it comes to automation. You're not going to get any debate out of me there. When it comes to understanding a lot of what's causing the economic plight and the anxiety happening in a lot of the country, he's a businessman. So I do believe that he has a lot of strengths in that department, but he has an advisor telling him the wrong things now. This all started, I mean, he's always been bad on foreign policy, so let me be very clear about that. He's always been bad on Russia specifically, but his talking points were off in a weird way tonight or last night. And it's been like that since he hit that $10 million fundraising quarter. And that was a record for him. And I truly believe it's because he hired on somebody who was trying to make him run a more traditional campaign. And it's going to cost him his voters, which are generally pretty like loyal to him. But there's a huge sector of his voters who are extremely intelligent, who have not, they've left other Democratic candidates, and a lot of them left Bernie to join him. But that isn't going to last if he starts running a traditional campaign.
Yeah.
So with that being said, people, I want to read through these super chats really fast. R2D2, thanks for the super chat. Does Tulsi have a statement on the Patriot Act? No, she hasn't had a statement on much of anything lately. I'm sure you heard already. I said she was sick, and so that's why she hasn't been active. Ren Stin, thanks for the super chat. Why do these people put themselves into Tiger Tulsi's den to be eaten alive? Haven't they learned anything? Haven't they learned nothing about Tulsi's slaves liars? That's true. That's very true. I said the same thing last night. I was like, bro, did Buttigieg just call Tulsi a liar? That's it. I'm telling you, bro, don't ever call Tulsi a liar, bro. Don't do it. I don't know why she takes that shit so personally, but that's just something that, I guess because she is so dedicated to the truth, and like she's one of those people once she learns the truth, like it's like an itch for her. She has to tell people like immediately. Like that's how you see she reads JFK books, and she's a bona fide conspiracy theorist like the rest of us, bro. She's dope. Nah, I'm playing. but yeah, don't ever call Tulsi a liar. Don't ever do it. It'll be the end of your campaign. Bethlehem, what's up, Bethlehem? Thanks for the super chat. Now it all makes sense. We didn't see Tulsi raising her hand. My husband thought that she was not getting aggressive. Thank you guys for your work. Yeah, no problem. And like I said, I happened to catch it on one of the live streams, but Tulsi's husband was, because obviously he was there, actually took to Twitter and told Sofia personally, like she kept raising her hand. And it was getting very, very frustrating for Tulsi.
Yeah, because literally it was, the only times when I did see her, it looked like she wasn't interested in participating. So.
Yeah, because, and I said the same thing. I'm like, well, I can't really blame her. Like, look, if I raise my hand and every time I raise my hand, they just change the question, I would get like that too. And it eventually becomes hard to hide from the crowd. But also when you're sick, it's even harder to hide it because you're just trying to stand up. And I felt like at a certain point last night, Tulsi was literally just trying to stand up and stay focused. She stuttered more than she normally does. She was like, she said a little bit more than she normally does. She was clearly not in her element last night, and still once again outperformed basically everybody else except for maybe Bernie, because Bernie, just like I said, he looked very virile and strong last night compared to the other candidates, even though the heart attack was supposed to set him back. It seems to have done the opposite. And I will just say, don't ever in y'all lives again. I can't believe this, because Tulsi isn't running on Medicare for all. She's running on Single Payer Plus. Okay, cool. So we've established that. But they look at the stage and say, we need to talk about healthcare and Medicare for all. And it was like they look at Bernie for a second. They're like, Bernie, hey, move the fuck out the way real quick. Warren, you're running on Medicare for all. Tell us. Bruh, I was like, this is insane. This is literally some dystopian shit we're seeing, bruh. Like, how you gonna say she running on a bill that the man wrote? He did write that bill. That Medicare for All bill that they're talking about, he actually did write that bill. That is his legislation. He has championed it. Trust me, I cannot tell you how much I know he's championed it, because his fucking supporters won't stop telling me every damn day, and they make up shit about that bill all the time. And they say whatever you think is wrong with the bill, it isn't wrong, and everything that we want the bill to be, it is, because Bernie's name is on it. Mm-hmm. It is Bernie's fucking bill. And they look at Warren and are like, hey, you're running on this bill, aren't you? It's ridiculous, bro. Like, it's stressful, y'all. But I'm gonna be doing a few breakdown videos, and I'm sure Sofia's gonna be doing the same. And listen, y'all, for the rest of about the next week or so, we gonna have some words for Buttigieg. I'm about tired of his shit. This about to be a whole Buttigieg marathon.
He is a horrible human being that needs to be exposed.
The fifth Aurelius Prime. He said the fifth Democratic debate. The Empire Strikes Back. Man, I feel like that's a good place to leave it, because that's exactly what happened. They were trying to make Tulsi pay for her standing up and for her having the nerve to be successful. How dare you, Tulsi? You should have been sick for. And I knew this was gonna happen. I don't know if y'all in astrology. I'm in astrology. This Mercury retrograde was basically the last 3 weeks was Mercury retrograde. And if you know anything about Mercury retrograde, shit sucks. Everything is an inconvenience. Like, communication breaks down. Like, that's what happens. That is what Mercury retrograde is. And so I'm glad it's over. Now we can get back to politics as usual, and Tulsi being the best on foreign policy, and probably the best or second best on domestic policy, and basically the best candidate that we've seen in modern history. Back to normal. I'm ready for that. And I'm also ready to get down to Buttigieg and all the fuck shit that he's been participating in. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Sofia, do you have anything to say before we go?
That's it. Yeah, that's pretty much, you said everything.
All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Like I said, you can subscribe to Sofia's YouTube channel as Sofia Zaldivar. Also subscribe to her at Rokfin. The link to her Rokfin channel is in the description below, and consider donating to her Patreon as well. And of course, you can come donate to our Patreon. The link is in the description, or you can go to www.patreon.com/mikasa to get the raw live streams after we've done them live, or you can subscribe to us on Rokfin Premium if you have Rokfin, and you can get all the live streams after that as well. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And always remember, find your balance. Peace.